it was interesting to watch from the spectator position of immigration, and I'm curious for you as the chief, these kind of open border, I would say, I'm just going to say like an open border policy. It wasn't an open border policy. Saying that doesn't give it justice, but there was a massive influx of illegal immigration that was happening during the Biden administration. As the chief at the time, and again, I don't know how to ask this question without sounding political, because I don't want any political conversation to be had, but was there a point where you felt you were handcuffed to make decisions that you wanted to better the safety of our country?
Of course, it's we're law enforcement officers, and we all look through it through a very black and white lens. This either keeps us safe or it doesn't, and we have the luxury, I guess, of not having to bring politics into our mindset when we're looking at it. And you can tell that's the way our agents look at it. That's the way our retired agents look at it, and it's frustrating. I mean, it's very frustrating. I looked at it like this: if it wasn't me or one of us that was going to be in that position, they would have put somebody else there, and it would have been even worse for the Border Patrol. So it's really about damage control. It's about doing the best you can to try and keep your green family and your agency moving forward and not being hurt whenever you think something bad is taking place. And that's what it was. We focused on areas where they were willing to work with us, and we didn't beat our head against the wall about things that there was just no way that politically they were ever going to get behind. A good example of that is, we pretty much quit discussing the wall, because that became a four-letter word back in the first Trump administration. And when the next administration came in, of course, that was almost a taboo topic. But what they were willing to work with us on was technology, was getting our folks investigative capabilities, resiliency efforts for our workforce. So there was things where we could make gains and keep moving forward, instead of trying to fight and beat our head against the wall against something that we were never going to win. So I tried to take that approach. It's all about trying to leave the place better than you found it. And that was the best we could do for the time.
Yeah. What I thought was interesting was things like the agency had to kind of avoid certain topics, things like potential terrorist apprehensions, wouldn't mention it, things like that, and that became a little frustrating from my position, because it's like we should tell the nation some of the threats that we might be coming up on, and I don't think we're doing our effort by showing the value of what the Border Patrol brings in America as the very important space that agents fulfill, is protecting the nation from threats like that. And why weren't we able to really highlight those successful apprehensions of these terrorist list individuals?
Well, sometimes it seems like optics matter more than results, if it serves a political means. And it's been that way, at least in my experience, on both sides of the aisle. I don't think either side is immune from it. But there's a reason why whenever when they bring in a new administration, that there are specific positions that are political appointees. One of them is the Public Affairs Assistant Commissioner at CBP, because they are going to craft a message in the best way for their administration. Can't blame them, that's their job. But for us, looking at it from a strictly pure standpoint, yeah, we'd like to tout this. This is what's happening. We need the American people to know this. A lot of times, those messages that we think should just go out unfiltered, they don't, and they can keep you from that. And that's just part of the game. You have to learn how to try and get your message out in other ways that don't trigger that political response. And it's a hard game, especially whenever you're a knuckle dragger that's come up from the ranks like we all were. And I'm sure you've dealt with that too, in your career. This was no different. It's like that every administration. This was one of the toughest that I've ever endured, because there was so much control over the message that was given.
Yeah. Well, just pivoting to a whole different area, I want to talk about your experience with seeing how cartels have kind of controlled the borders. And kind of some of those threats that we might have today because of those. I know that, you know, the U.S. border controls the borders, but on the other side of that, the cartel. And in your experience, can you tell some of the audience of how prevalent the cartels are on those borders and the controlling of the drugs and human smuggling, but as well as the potential of that spillover into America?
Well, Vince, let's level set. Start off with right. The border is not and has never been secure. I don't think there's any agent that wants to look themselves in the mirror and be able to face what they see that's going to say that. Think about this. There's so much of the border. There's almost 2,000 miles of border with Mexico. There's 5,000 miles and change of border with Canada if you count the vertical slash with Alaska. We don't have the manpower or the resources to say with a certainty that we can detect everything that comes across our border. Never have. It's no one administration's fault. It's just that's the nature. That is the reality of our border.